Good morning. Happy to have Darnell Brown with us on the call today with the Business Spotlight. I'm David Dowdy, and I own Action Coach Lake Norman, which is a business training and education and coaching firm here around the lake. So, Darnell, great to have you with us this morning. And how about introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your business?
Yeah, happy to be here, David. Appreciate the intro. And yeah, I'm over here in the Huntersville area, so we are neighbors. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I am a growth strategist and designer who works with creative and non-creative entrepreneurs in a myriad of ways, but usually I'm in some way helping them power up and impact lives. And yeah, my background is in graphic design, and I started my enterprise back in 2008. So I'm about 15 and a half years into this at the time that we're recording this. And yeah, work with all types of folks, solopreneurs, fractionals, small business owners, medium-sized businesses as well too. I've played all types of roles from branding guy, graphic designer, web designer, marketing guy, you name it. Played many, many different roles over these last 15 years. And again, my background is in design. So working in the digital realm with logos and flyers and stuff, and all the way to where I am now, which is a lot of consulting, coaching work related to both business but especially in branding and marketing, helping businesses become more singular entities uh, as well is a part of my whole thing. And I just essentially love, David, being the straight line between 2 points in time, where someone is and where they're trying to go, whether that is a business with 50 employees or a solopreneur who's just getting things off of the ground. Usually able to come in pretty objectively, see things, and try to make that really, really windy road of entrepreneurship more straightened and kind of be like a wormhole between 2 points in time. So
I
I can
gotcha.
get a little geeky with the metaphors, but let me know if I'm
Uh,
losing you.
That's all good. I mean, and I think you could probably attest to most business owners want it to be a straight line, very
Mm,
predictable, and it's
yep, exactly.
rarely that
That's
way.
exactly right.
So since 2008, wow. So you've been around, done a lot of different things. So if you had it to do all over, if you had to start from square one, what would you do differently um, if you did it all over again?
Yeah, there would be three primary things that I would do. One of them that I learned probably about 3 or 4 years ago was just a very streamlined approach, David, of the first three things that I would do in business. And that's like the first part of this answer, which is I would pick a problem, I would define the audience that has that problem, and I would clarify what is I would offer to solve that problem. Those would be the first three things I would do. I would not have started, David, with like trying to do my logo and like worrying about my website and things. I would have honed in on a particular problem. Then I would have defined an audience around who has that problem, and let me hang out where they are. Let me go in where they already exist. Let me start providing some value. And I feel like, David, you can do that even in the design realm. Like even though you're usually being tasked with things, like people are coming to you to design things, there's still a way for you to find a problem and center your business around solving that. So that would be the first thing that I would do. I would have like done it in that specific order. Second thing I would have did, David, is I would have hired or bartered services with a business coach. I hands down think that having a business coach 15 years ago would have made everything much more smoothly. Because here's the
And
thing.
this is not a paid
Okay.
endorsement here, but
This
I
is
mean
not a paid endorsement. No,
that's
no, this is
awesome.
not a paid endorsement.
We just met.
Uh
Great.
yeah, we just met, and I've been recently connected with people that made me think about things in some new lights. And I was just like, yeah, 15 years ago, we might have used synonyms such as like mentors or consultants or somewhere in there, but having someone that's been on that journey and give you some game on how this whole thing goes, especially, David, if you're more creative minded like me, where you're not thinking largely in business terms, to have like even that side of your brain even be working in the first place. Because when you get out here ready to design, you're just like, oh man, I want to design everything. And I'm thinking about my pricing and stuff, but you're not like thinking about taxes and bookkeeping and administration, those elements, but also someone sitting down with me, hey Darnell, this is how you grow your business. This is how you should think about, your 5-year plan, your 1-year plan. And do what is your income to expenses ratio and all of these things, all of these elements that you didn't know. So that'll be the second thing. And then the
Okay.
last thing, David, would be in the beginning, I would have networked harder and I would have done a lot more free work just to get my name out there in some circles, just to build up a catalog, build up your portfolio, your contact list. Because the moment that you sit down and say, okay, business is slow right now, what could I do to drum up some business? Had I known that I could have just like, oh man, I see you got a landing page up or a sales page, and these are some things that I would change about it. Like, if it's okay with you, just let me design that for you for free, and you can take it or leave it. You don't even got to pay me for it. But if you do, that's great. And I would have did that like 10 or 15 times with random people. Guaranteed I would have gotten way more business a lot more sooner just by, again, uh, finding creative ways to get your name out there. If no one knows of you, you got no testimonials whatsoever, to step out there, be brave, and say, well, let me start finding problems that exist from people that I want to work with. And even if they're not ready to hire me, let me just show them what I could do, just so I can have that in my portfolio and get a testimonial from them at worst.
That,
And then
that's,
use
I
that.
mean, three great things right there. And it kind of leads in the next question I was going to ask you. What were some of the biggest learnings that you've had since you've been in business? But those three are pretty good learnings right there. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you'd add?
Um, yeah. So, I mean, to that point of what I learned, David, that you should be generous as you can be with your time and with your presence with people. As someone who's had their own business for going on 2 decades now, I've just always recognized the power of just generosity, not even doing it for any sense of reciprocity whatsoever, no expectations, just getting out here and trying to be of value to people, leave people better than you found them. And all of the work, like the commodity that you offer or your services, that all comes as a byproduct of osmosis, of just saying, you know what, Dave, I'm just here to see how Dave is doing, and what he's up to, and whether or not I can be of any service to someone that he may or may not know. But also, if he has kids or a wife or something at home, I'm, like referencing earlier conversations that we had, just being a genuine, authentic person. That's been one of the biggest things. Also, I would say, David, don't hoard what you know. So
Hmm.
sometimes we have this willingness to say, is this something that I should charge for? Or if I got a great referral for somebody that knows, if I know someone that David needs in his department, like thinking more so about, okay, man, I'm not going to hoard that. I'm just going to like give up the resource until I create my own referral program. If that becomes a pillar of my business down the line, that's great. But I'm not going to hoard what I know if I can be of service or even provide a resource for someone else. So
And
those would be like kind of the two big things. And I think lastly that I would say is agility and evolution are everything. Your ability to pivot when things get tough, when life happens, that's something that you always should be working on. When the times are good, how can I set up things in motion so that when things go wrong, because they definitely will, that's a 1000% chance, life is going to happen multiple times as a business owner. What are some safeguards, some counter punches that I can already bake into what I'm already doing so that the business can run without me, so that when it's time to put out fires, I can remain calm and collected? Those are some of the things I've learned.
brilliant, brilliant. I love it. I mean, so much wisdom, and you use the term generosity, and it really speaks to the heart that you've got for the business community and just people in general. So now that you've been in small business for a while now, you got some insight. What do you think are some of the misconceptions that people have about going into business for themselves or operating a small business?
Ooh, spicy. Misconceptions. Wow. One of them goes back to what we were saying right before we hit record about like the windy road of business. You get into it thinking that it's going to be straight up and down, like going from down to up, or even a straight line all the way through. And it's just not like that. Life is going to throw so many curveballs at you. Business is going to throw a lot of curveballs at you. And so your ability to be resourceful, creative, to bake in your counter punches, as I like to call them, to the things that you can't control that happen to your business, to your life, is super paramount to your success, your longevity, your sustainability with things. So that's a big misconception, is that entrepreneurship can somehow, that there's a silver bullet or one size fits all approach to going from here to there. It's just not one. It's so many things, so many factors and variables that can lead to success. So that's a big misconception.
Yeah.
I would say also that there's also, yeah, the flip side of that question. So the pessimistic way of business, that, it's not for everybody. I would agree with that. I don't think that that's not so much a misconception, but I think the misconception part is that like, you have to do things a certain way to know whether or not you're built for this. I often like to look at it, David, as entrepreneurship or going into business for yourself feels a lot like a hunger pain to some degree. And you can be driven by a desire to want differently than what traditional employment has looked like for you. All of us that are in this, I feel like, either stumbled into it, and may feel like entrepreneurship chose us. We've always had that bug of, like, out there at the lemonade stand as a 10-year-old kid, or even me selling pecans, going door to door when I was like 9 or 10 years old. Like, I didn't know what commerce was in entrepreneurship. We didn't even know these words, but some inclination of just saying, you know what? Allowance isn't enough right now. And if I'm going to get out here and get this money, I got to be creative and work with the things that are around me. And so it's that other misconception of whether or not you're built for this. And I think you have to have a hunger. It's not something that you can just wake up to one day and just say, oh, I want to be in business for myself. That hunger is what's going to drive you. But and a lack for something that you want more of or wish that you had, but that's not enough to sustain you. That can drive you. That's your spark plug. But to sustain that vehicle, you have to come from a place of abundance and being very creative with what already exists for you at this time, and saying, I'm going to somehow make this happen. If I can't make that big budget sci-fi movie for $200 million at Warner Brothers, then I better start with my friends, the $5,000 I got saved up, and shoot a commercial that conveys a similar concept, and see if this can be my pitch deck when it comes to what I'm trying to produce, as an analogy.
Start with where you are. And I was going to ask what some of the things that have propelled you in your own growth, but I think you've already alluded to a lot of those things, of just the abundance mindset, generosity, and the wisdom to know that you got to work with what you've got and keep going. So let me ask you, how, life is busy, business is busy. How do you balance that personal and business life? I'm not sure what your personal life is really like, of course, but there's always a balance for our own well-being. How do you balance things in business versus the rest of your life?
That's a great question. And for me, David, it is to do the things that, well, okay, like, self-awareness is a huge, huge element of just, I think, my personality and my peers and things, of what they think about themselves, their own self-confidence, their own belief in their abilities, a heightened self-awareness. And David, I believe that comes from working on yourself first thing in the mornings, or first thing when your day starts, if your day starts in the afternoon or in the evenings, but treating yourself as the most important person in your life, so that you could be there for everybody else who needs what you have to offer, but taking an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning to just focus on you. How do I feel in my body? Am I grateful to it? I know there are things that I would change about the way I look and my hair and my body, and I'm working on changing some things about it, but am I grateful for it? Can I find gratitude in where I am with things right now? I work out every morning. First thing, I get that in. It used to be my version of eating the frog, like the thing that I dreaded doing, but now I love it, and I can't imagine my day without it. And David, it gives me so much energy for the next 16 or 17 hours. I don't even have to take afternoon naps. Like, this is crazy. At age 39, by the way, I take no afternoon naps, not even any power naps. that boost of just 30 minutes of a surprise workout, whether it's kickboxing, Pilates, or something, I shuffle the thing. And so spending that time gives you a heightened self-awareness, I think, of just knowing what you think about when it's just you, before the rest of the house wakes up. Of just saying, am I good in my own bones and in my own spirit, and what I think about my own abilities, and how do I show up for everybody who needs me to be a leader for them? Because whether or not you put yourself in a position, people still going to see you that way. There's something about your aura or the way that you present yourself that says, I want to follow that guy, Dave. And so thinking of them and thinking about how you need to show up in the world starts with that self-awareness. That gives me a very good work-life balance, because I know what those values are. I start them out first thing, then I get to the money, as I call it, for the rest of the day. And then when it's time to cool down, still having that energy, still having that optimism of even just, how is your life going? Where does one identity end? Where does the other one begin? For me, Dave, they've started to blur a lot, my professional and personal identities. And I think that's a feature, not a bug, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's less work that you have to do. It's less much of a public face in two different degrees. Who are you as a family person? Who are you in the work setting? Who are you when you need to court investors or the people that you're working with, or prospects and leads and things?
Right.
I've always loved for that to I can just be the same person no matter what. My clothes might change depending on the setting, but how I talk to you, same way I talk to my friends. And it's the same type of topics that I do like talking about.
Yeah.
So
Love the
that helps out with
love the
work-life balance.
authenticity. Yeah. So two questions left in the time remaining. First
Okay.
one is, what words of advice would you give to somebody else that's looking to jump into business ownership or looking to grow?
Yes. Words of advice that I would give kind of goes back, I think, full circle with what I would do if I had started over again. Start with that problem. And if you feel like you offer something that is a commodity, fruits and veggies, things that you could buy at a grocery store, at a
Yep.
drugstore or something, to really still hone in on who has a problem of yours that you want to solve. The other big thing that ties into that kind of tangentially, David, is one thing I've learned is that great businesses and great brands are really all great problem solvers. And to be a great problem solver, you have to be a great observer and someone who's a great listener. And if you can be a great observer or listener, you got to be curious, and you got to have you want to satiate, you want to satisfy that hunger of yours, that curiosity of solving a problem, of being hyper obsessed about it. That's the reverse track. That's the simple way to put it. The ultimate bottom line is to find something that you're curious enough, that you love dearly enough, of a problem or a pain point that is so agitating that you're going to qualify yourself to be in a position to solve that for people. You might already be that way, but it takes thinking of things in that way and saying, okay, how do I become more curious? And if I'm not very curious about what it is that I'm doing, then I probably haven't found my zone of genius. So let me experiment a little bit more. Let me get curious. Let me start listening to the people that have that problem, survey them often, ask good questions, and then let me get to work on solving that problem for them. And that's the track that I would give to people in terms of advice for someone on the come up here.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Okay, so Darnell, tell the listeners and the viewers, how would we get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way at this point would be at darnellbrown.com. And I'm sure you'll probably put that in the show notes, but it's DARNELL, brown like the color.com. I'm also experimenting with a video-based kind of website experience. And so that you can find that, I actually would maybe prefer that, darnellbrown.com/help. Go there, got a video-based thing that's almost like a choose your adventure of saying, I introduce myself and we guide you towards where you're trying to go and what you may have issues with and what type of person that you are. So I kind of qualify you, describe you, and then take you down the path that you're going to. And I would say, yeah, David, let's experiment with that as where we send people versus my
Awesome.
website where you can kind of get lost, obviously. There's so many different options. Let's try a streamlined approach. Why not?
Very good. We'll spread that news. Darnell Brown, really appreciate you being on the Business Spotlight series here with us. And thanks for everything you're doing in the community and being a part of it, and wish you continued success.
Thank you as well, David. Thank you so much. I loved it.